2 red flags in your relationship. So 2 things that are a warning sign that you need to probably take a look at. And the first one we want to start with is not having tough conversations. So if you're in a relationship where either you or your partner is not having the tough conversation, maybe you're shutting down, or your partner's shutting down, or stonewalling, or closing, or defending,
escaping, that's another big one.
Yeah.
Or just avoiding. That used to happen for us quite a lot. Adam
I used to be
would
guilty
avoid
of this big time. I used to avoid conversation, or I used to defend, make excuses, and really try and end the conversation quicker than what needed to happen. It needed to be discussed. We needed to speak truthfully. We needed to open up and share what was going on for both of us. But I used to try and avoid that. I used to close.
And a lot of this comes from, it's not that Adam didn't want to have the conversation, and we see this in couples all the time. It isn't always just men. There are women who also avoid the tough conversations out of fear of expressing themselves. So that's another part of it. It actually is a pattern that you formed probably most likely in childhood. So before the age of 7, we learn how to be in a relationship or have tough conversations, or even how to communicate from the people who raised us. So from parents, conditioning, role models, and watching the way they do it. And we're not able to rationalize it at those young ages. So we form this blueprint of how to communicate and what relationships should look like, or how to deal with tough conversations, or how to deal with stress. And we end up mirroring whatever our parents or role models did, not knowing why. And some of those things we mirror are not healthy. Like, you will know, like, you'll be probably, having flashbacks right now, like we did. Our parents do the best with what they know at the time, and that's the same with us. I really do believe everyone's always doing the best that they can with what they know, but when we know better, we can do better. So there's no need to blame or shame, but it's really helpful to look back and just be aware of where that pattern comes from, because it's not you, it's a pattern. So that's really good news, because patterns can be changed. You can reprogram, you can choose another way, you can decide to show up in your relationship differently, you can change your relationship to tough conversations. And that's what we had to do, and that's what we teach couples to do, because basically what ends up happening is, for Adam and his experience, he never saw tough conversations happening. And we hear this from a lot of couples, where like an argument would happen at home between parents or somebody around him, a role model. There'd be a blow up, but then there'd be no resolution. Or as soon as the anger or the stress came to the surface, it was like, quick, put it under the rug. Like, no one wants to see that.
Don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it.
There was like a big explosive reaction, and then it was like, let's not talk about it. Or someone would exit the conversation, and it never got resolved. And then you install this pattern as a kid. You get this pattern installed as that's how you deal with these tough conversations.
And that you shouldn't be having them. That, you shouldn't be having these tough conversations. And if you are, you need to hide those, get them in a box, and don't let anyone see them. Or the other side of it, which was a bit more of my experience and a lot of women that I work with, is that they would fight. Like, okay, you want to bring a challenge, I'll bring a challenge, I'll get my sword out, I'll get, I'm ready to fight, and they would push back, and they'd be very like verbal, there'd be a lot of criticism, and so explosive, but still no real resolution. So yes, they were, yes, I would express myself in the past, but not constructively. It was more like projecting rather than processing. And so then there can never be any resolution. It makes tough conversations impossible. They feel like a waste of time, because you never actually get to the solution or what's the core issue underneath. We get stuck on the surface. So this is a really big red flag. So we hear from couples a lot, and you've probably heard this as well, or maybe you're doing it yourself. You'll say things like, oh, we never argue. We're best friends. We just talk all the time. Never have an argument. It doesn't necessarily mean that your relationship is thriving, because tough conversations are actually what creates the connection. If you can lean in and work together through tough conversations, it builds trust in your relationship. It builds connection. It builds love. If you can learn the skills and the tools to do it in the right way. And if you don't have them, you need to go and seek out and learn them. And that's what we teach, that there is a way that you can have these tough conversations where you don't need to stonewall. You don't need to criticize. You don't need to block or avoid or put up your walls or fight. There is other ways to have these tough conversations which are actually constructive, which are actually healthy. And you will both grow through the experience and get closer to what you want in your relationship. So it's huge. Like if you're not having tough conversations in your relationship, just check in, because it doesn't mean that everything's perfect.
No.
I mean, no relationship is perfect. That's a lie.
A lot of the time these things get put under the rug, and they end up building and building and building, and it becomes a point where there's too much under the rug, and then it explodes. And that's when you see couples go from like, oh, they were fine 1 minute, next minute they're divorced.
Yes, and it didn't happen like that.
Yeah, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a long
put
period
under
of time.
the rug that eventually it can't hold anymore. So eventually you do explode. And then at that point, it seems like, oh, you know, how are we meant to solve it? You know, you can still work through it at that point, but it is so much easier to start working through it sooner. You know, like everything in life, if you have health problems, if you put them off, by the time you go, it's a lot harder to deal with. Like prevention is the best cure for everything. To the earlier you pick it up, the earlier you work on it, the better the result. And that's, you know, universal for everything. So if you're not having tough conversations, just check in with how you're actually feeling in your relationship. Like, do you feel like you're heard? Do you feel like you're appreciated? Do you feel like, you know, are you just settling? Are you just tolerating things and settling things because it's easier to keep the peace? It's too hard. All of that is a sign, you know, that is a red flag. You need to look at those things because all of that unspoken is felt in energy. So many couples say to us, oh, we never fight or argue, but the energy in our house is so toxic. It's so heavy. You know, I look at him and I feel stressed or anxiety or, you know, and this is the person you're meant to love. And the reason you're feeling that anxiety and that stress is because you're anticipating like, oh, are they really going to be able to tell what's going on underneath? Are they going to expose that thing that I'm trying so hard to hide? I mean, they feel it. We're all intuitive beings. They can feel it even if we're not saying it. So this is your sign. Start dealing with your shit, because to be true, we all have shit and we really need to deal with it. We need to look at it. So that's number one.
And the second one is little to no intimacy.
Yes.
So how often, and this is a subject that a lot of people find it hard to talk about, but it's something we need to bring more awareness to and talk about a little bit more, because it's a huge part of why we even get together in the first place. That's what an intimate relationship is. The difference between a friendship and an intimate relationship is intimacy, is sex. So we need to talk about it and be clear on how it healthily looks. Like, what does that actually mean and what does it look like? And a lot of the time, you know, we didn't speak about this stuff with our parents. We didn't have someone who actually opened up to us about their relationship, someone who maybe was in a great relationship, who would share what it's actually meant to look like. So how often are you being intimate in your relationship? Is it once a week? Is it once a month? Is it once every 6 months? We've heard couples talk about once every 6 months they were intimate. And or
even longer, you know, especially after like a traumatic event, or, you know, I've had to help a lot of women to come back to this place of safety where they can open up to intimacy, because it's not just about the physical act. Anyone can learn the physical act. It's called intimacy because we're meant to be inviting each other intimately into each other. So exposing our most intimate parts, it requires a lot of vulnerability. That's why it's so scary for some of us. But, you know, a lot of women that I've worked with this, and, you know, they've had a traumatic event happen, or something, you know, had a challenge in their relationship, or something went, you know, drastically wrong, and then to open up again was so hard. So we have to work on building that muscle of building that safety in yourself first to be able to open up, but then also realizing, what do you need? And this is a good question to ask yourself if you're not being intimate in your relationship. what do you need to feel safe to open up to intimacy, or even like to feel like you desire to open up to intimacy? And, get your partner to ask the same. What do you need to feel open to intimacy? Because there's different needs that we have in a relationship. Men and women have completely different needs when it comes to intimacy and connection. We don't have time to go into all of it, and that will probably be another video, but we have different needs. So ask yourself, if you're not being intimate, why? What are you afraid of? What are you scared of? What's that block getting in the way?
What's the story you're telling yourself about why you can't be intimate more regularly?
Because that's the reason. It's your relationship to the intimacy. It's whatever you're making it mean. And then secondly, what do you need in order to start feeling safe and or open or free to be able to open up to intimacy? What do you need? And start to give yourself whatever that is. Honor that in yourself. Give yourself that. If it's more time, if it's space, if it's, I'm a mum now, so I often need some time by myself to be able to switch hats, to go from mum mode to like lover mode, And Adam knows that. Like, I communicated that I needed that. So we now honor that, and I'll have a bath, or he'll set up the room, or, or we needed to start dating again. So that, for women, they need a reason to be intimate. Men just need a place. Like, let's just be honest. Men just need a place, a location.
Yep.
They're there. And there's no shame in that. I laugh with like joy and appreciation. In the past, before I learned this, I couldn't do that. But it's now an appreciation, and that is how it is for men, because it is very physical for men. For women, it's emotional. Connection and intimacy is emotional, so we need to feel safe. Like, sometimes I need to talk. I need to vent, get the day off my mind and my shoulders before I open up intimately to Adam, so that I'm free. I've created space to be able to open up and receive. And there'll be different things for you, but men and women, intimacy it's a different experience for both of us. We do it for different reasons, and that's okay. It doesn't make him wrong or you wrong. What we need to do is learn to honor those reasons and give each other what we need, so that we actually want to open up in that intimacy. And it's so powerful. Like, there is so many benefits to intimacy, like reducing stress. It helps your nervous system. It helps you to relax. It's a blissful, incredible experience when you really allow yourself to open up to it. There's so many benefits. So it's definitely worth like really understanding what you need and what your partner needs to be able to experience that. So,
and for the men too, like, are you feeling like being intimate, but it's your partner who's not? Then maybe you need to ask yourself, what am I not doing, or what am I not discussing with my partner that's not enabling her to feel safe to open to me?
Yes.
Am I not listening to her enough? Am I not being present enough in conversation that she can get off her chest all the things she needs to get off her chest, so that she then feels open to connecting with me intimately? So you really need to go deep and inquire as to why your partner's not willing to open. And if you're not feeling like opening, you need to ask yourself why that is.
Yeah, and look at that. What do you need, to be able to feel like you want to open? You know, the world we live in is very stressful these days. We're well aware. We're parents, we have 2 kids under 5, we have businesses, we know what it's like. But we also know when we shelve intimacy, everything goes down.
Every area of your life goes down.
Every single thing goes down, because your relationship is the foundation of your life. This is where you fill up. This is where you create meaning. So if this is just mediocre and just cruising and just in the rat race, and you're picking up the kids, I'm doing this, we're like robots. There is no meaning, there is no love, there is no connection, and that's when we start to question what is life really about? What are relationships really about if I don't even have this intimate connection? We're wired as human beings to create this intimate connection. We crave it, we need it, literally, to survive. So, ask yourself, have you shelved it? We call it, we've been through periods. 2 years ago, we had a really tough time in our relationship, and we had these long periods of what we call love-making droughts. And at that same time, everything else suffered in our life. Trying to be a parent, trying to work, trying to be a friend, all the different roles, everything suffered when the intimacy was shelved. And, take note. Look at, if you haven't been intimate, what has been the impact on the other areas of your life? And it will show you, this is where we get a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something you need to look at. It's something we need to start being okay with talking about.
Yeah.
It's not disgusting. It's not weird. It's not like taboo the way we've been conditioned. It's part of being in an intimate relationship.
Yeah.
And the more openly we can talk about it, the more we can heal it, bring it into the light, and really, just bring back that connection that we're all craving and we all deserve. So, if you've liked this video, ask yourself those questions. And if you've liked this video, subscribe, leave some comments, or send us a message. Let us know what you've learned. And we've got some workshops coming up that you can check out.
So there's links down below this video, guys, that'll show you about the workshops that are coming up and all the other resources we have. We've got some free stuff, a free ebook. We've also got some online courses and programs on relationships which you can get access to. So go down, check out those links, and we'll see you in the next video.